I've been speaking to them in German. It wastes their time.
That's a good one. I like that.
Ich speak in kein English, sprechen Sie Deutsch. I've been speaking to them in German. It wastes their time.
That's a good one. I like that.
Ich speak in kein English, sprechen Sie Deutsch. I've been speaking to them in German. It wastes their time.
Once they say we're recording, you should just.
But that's fairly harmless.
Oh, got it. Okay, I think we're ready. I apologize. So we're good to go now.
Good morning. I'll call the Land Use and Information Committee meeting for November 7th, 2023 to order. Notice has been posted in accordance with Wisconsin Statute 19.84 Open Meeting Law. At this time, I'll accept any public comments. If you have comments for things that are on the agenda, you can wait till they appear on the agenda. Otherwise, are there any general public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 3, approval of the agenda order.
Make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Payton. Second by Ms. Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we'll have the approval of the minutes from the October 3rd, 2023 meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes. Second motion.
Motion by Mr. Blomberg, second by Mr. Payton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we'll have public hearing. Jason, will you please read the public hearing notice?
Notice of public hearing, State of Wisconsin, County of Burnett, Tuesday, November 7th, 2023 at 9 a.m. at the Burnett County Government Center, Room 160, Town of Menan, Siren, Wisconsin, regarding the following: Burnett County Land Use Shoreline Protection Code, Protection Ordinances. Conditional Use Permit CUP 2315, Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Webb Lake, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use Code of Ordinances to operate a 2.5 megawatt solar generation facility located at 3171 Lake 26 Road in the F1 zoning district in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter, section 29, town 41 north, range 14 west. Conditional use permit number 2 is postponed until next month. That's Birchwood Beach Properties. The next one, number 3, conditional use permit CUP 2317 Waltzing. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Oakland, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Michael and Jean Waltzing have made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use Code of Ordinances to construct up to 3 rental storage buildings. The grand total of up to 50 units on the parcel with address 27225 State Road 35 in the A2 zoning district, lot 1, CSM, volume 29, page 246, in the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter, section 32, town 40 north, range 16 west.
Thank you, Jason. Move on into the public hearing portion. Number A, conditional use CUP 23-15, Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company, solar generation facility in F1.
And Mr. Chairman, at this time, I would like to refrain from any discussion, recuse myself because I'm a shareholder of Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company, and so I would stand to benefit from such project. So
You're
I will
excused.
remove myself to the clerk's office.
Thank you, Brent. Application, will the applicant please come forward?
Good morning. It's nice to see all of you again. I didn't have a formal presentation since I've already done that, so I just have some brief comments to share.
Sure.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you have. Is this working okay?
Sure.
Okay.
A little bit closer to it.
Okay. Is that better? Okay. So thanks again for your time. One Energy has been working in collaboration with Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company to put this project together, and we've strived to put together a project that both meets the growing needs of the community and listens to the concerns raised. We've met with the local DNR staff, Ben Garrett, who leads the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, along with Chief Hemquist of Webb Lake. Our proposed conditions and modifications to our typical layout were all made in response to listening to the community. For example, we've committed to more emergency response training than standard. We also will include more aggregate than standard around components, and we're adding an emergency access path around the entire project. These measures also serve as fuel breaks. We've also increased setbacks from the standard, so the project is well screened. As John has indicated before, citing this project where it is, adjacent to the Webb Lake substation, is to meet the need where it is, the town of Webb Lake, where the majority of meters served by the substation are located. As a company, One Energy has developed 42 projects in the Midwest. 31 of these are in Wisconsin, including in the North Woods, with our project in Rhinelander for Wisconsin Public Service Utility. We have a safe record, and our projects serve the needs of the local community. Utilities across Wisconsin are pursuing these projects because they are cost-effective, safe, and reliable, which aligns with their responsibilities to serve their customers. I've recently had the pleasure of attending some ribbon cuttings for some of our projects that we constructed this summer. And at one in DeSoto, Wisconsin, which is in Vernon County, attendees included local elected officials and many community groups. The project was designed, again, to serve the utilities' need for cost-effective, safe, and reliable power. The support shown at the ribbon cuttings really demonstrates how communities across Wisconsin are embracing these small solar projects, which serve local needs. And we look forward to working on this project and expanding our relationships with the local community over the lifetime of the project. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any of the committee members have any questions?
Did you say 42 projects?
42 projects in the Midwest, 31 are in Wisconsin.
Of the 42 projects, has there ever been a fire at any of the projects started by any of the equipment that you've installed?
Mr. Conrad?
Yeah, I'd like to, this reserves the right to recall the applicant for if questions come up in the course of public hearing comments that we need to address.
Any other comments or questions from the committee members? If not, at this time, I'll open the public hearing. People to make comments have 3 minutes. You do have a timer, right, Tanya? Okay, when you hear the ding, that means your 3 minutes are up. Come forward, state your name, and give us your comments.
I'm here from the town of Webb Lake. My name is Andrew Kaharski, and I'm opposed to the station being built in Webb Lake. I have 2 comments. At the very first meeting that occurred at the town of Webb Lake, one of the representatives of the company that's going to build this solar facility was asked about the danger of fires. And what he said, and I'm going to try and quote it, I don't know if he's here today or not, but what he said was that if there's a fire or a small fire, our policy is to let it burn. And then we can take care of it later. And the town of Webb Lake, to take care of it later, there's a small fire department there, and an electrical fire or something of this nature could be very dangerous. And when he said that at the meeting, I thought it shows kind of an attitude toward the town of Webb Lake. That's why I came here to say that. And most of the people in that area do not want it because it's a recreational area, and within a mile of it, there's 200 to 300 residences. And most of those people don't know anything about this. And the town did not know anything about it till my brother brought it up at the very first meeting at Webb Lake. So there's a lot of things about it that just don't ring very true. What's going to happen to all those panels after their useful life is over with? Who disposes of them? Who pays for that? Does the town pay for that? I don't know. And if you ever drive on Highway 53 toward Rice Lake, you can see a solar panel installation, and it's in a big open field. All I'm saying is that there's got to be some better places to put this facility than right in the middle of the area close to downtown Webb Lake. And the other part about it is if you've ever been out there, it's surrounded by forest, a lot of heavy forest with homes all interspersed in there. If that area of, I thought they said 15 acres is cleared for a solar facility, what's going to happen is that leaves, brush, pine needles will all be blowing in there around it. And with a lot of wind that comes through Webb Lake, it could be a spot for a possible fire. I don't know how safe their wiring is, and the town doesn't know that yet either. And there was supposed to be an environmental impact study done, and as far as I know, it hasn't been done yet. So I'm asking the county board to do a lot more studying about this before approving it, because all of you represent all the people that live here in Burnett County and in Webb Lake. And it's up to you. Oh, I thank you for the time. Thank you.
Next.
I'm on the list, I think, but maybe you're not going by the list. Good morning, I'm Steve Pearson from Oakland Township. Thanks for your service and thanks for listening today. Last time we heard concerns about fires at solar installations from several individuals based on anecdotal accounts. Those concerns were real, and I don't intend to belittle any of them in any way. But it may be useful to look at the facts in assessing how likely the occurrence of a fire at a solar farm is and how that compares with other fire dangers in a wooded area like ours. If you live in the woods, as I do, being vigilant about fire danger is second nature, as I'm sure it is for others here as well. One large study in 2021 done in Germany, which is way ahead of the US in solar installations per capita, looked at the issue of fires at large-scale solar farms. The Fraunhofer Institute for Solar Energy Systems found that of the more than 2 million photovoltaic solar plants in Germany, just 6 out of every 100,000 caused a fire resulting in damage in the last 20 years. They also found that the majority of these fires were the result of faulty cabling and connections, factors that could occur in any kind of electrical system of any kind. Faulty installations are more often than not the culprit in solar fires, so it's important that the installers are experienced and have a good track record and that they regularly monitor and maintain the installation. By contrast, the National Fire Protection Association estimates that 20,000 RV fires occur every year in this country. One might ask, should we ban RVs and RV campgrounds in our wooded areas because of their inherent fire danger? The need for more power generation in the Webb Lake area in our summer months is in a large part the result of the influx of hundreds of non-resident RV owners coming to stay for several months at the 2 large RV parks in the area. And finally, it's probably worth asking, are the objections to the solar project more ideological than practical? I applaud Northwestern Wisconsin Electric and One Energy Renewables for their plan to increase electrical generation in the Webb Lake area without adding more carbon to the atmosphere. Anyone who spent last summer in our area knows that smoky skies were a regular feature, almost a daily occurrence, as they have been for the last decade. And they've been increasing during that time, a direct result of more large fires out west and in Canada that experts say are to be expected as climate change intensifies. I'm grateful that Northwestern Electric is cognizant of this and is leading the way in providing safe, sustainable power generation that recognizes our obligation to those who need power now, and equally important, those who will come after us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Hamilton. I live in the town of Oakland. I don't have a horse in this race, but I as a land use planner and participant in the town of Oakland's land use process, I am intrigued by this project. So based solely on my limited knowledge and research, I do feel that this is a local energy problem, and the utility and One Energy have come up with a very local, very surgical, almost precision-like solution to a local energy problem. So we have a situation where we have the data. This isn't a speculative project. The data is there. We need to support the public with more power. So regardless of the reasons, the land use development decisions and the development in Webb Lake is driving the need for more power. So how do we get more power? The coal-fired power plants are going to be shutting down. And I think this is the beginning, not an anomaly, of future projects like this. We have to be vigilant in making sure that the needs of the community, the needs of the public with electrical power are served. And I think the utility should be congratulated for reviewing the data and acting on that. And I also, looking at the project and the package or the packet for this meeting, to me, in my opinion, it looks like One Energy and the utility have been very proactive, and I congratulate them for partnering with the community and adjusting their plan to try to come up with the most energy efficient and least expensive and least invasive solution with some of the setbacks and clearing some of the wooded areas that would serve as fuel in a fire. I think they've done a really good job with this project, and we have to serve the public, and this is in the public interest. And based on that, I would like to recommend the committee give this application favorable consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next person to make comment.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing us to attend this meeting, and I want to
Please state your name.
my name is John Richards. I'm from Northwestern Wisconsin Electric. You've heard me speak a couple times, so I just had a couple comments. First and foremost, I want to address the safety concern that was brought up here earlier from the Webb Lake Town meeting. As an entity that supplies power to the community, the first thing that all of you need to know, and I want to talk about the context of that statement that was made, is that if you see a high voltage equipment or a line down that has caused a fire, you need to stay away until you're told that it's safe. It's hard to watch if it has started a fire, like a down power line, but first and foremost, you need to stay away. And that's context in which those comments were made. We're all taught scene safe, don't hurt yourself. Going into a scene like that, you need to, and all of our employees and the whole industry will tell you that if you see a down power line or power equipment in a high voltage situation that is on fire or smoking, stay away until you're told that it's safe. So that was the context in which those statements were made. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that this is not a bulk power solution. This is I heard the word tactical, and that is, it addresses the specific needs of the Webb Lake community and the growth that we've seen in the last decade. The size of that substation and the equipment in it has tripled in size. And this is one way to address the growth that has occurred and that will occur in the future. I've talked about the different ways at this meeting. I want to talk about as a committee that addresses zoning, you are consistently looking for likeness when you're changing zoning or land use applications. There is an electrical substation there now. Allowing this to occur next to the electrical substation is the most efficient way to apply this type of generation. And from a zoning perspective, that's what's there already. So it makes sense to put it there, not only electric, but from a zoning perspective as well. This property has been part of the managed forest law. It has been managed as forest property. And as you all know, that in the management of forest property, there's cutting involved. The property has been clear cut more than once. And I suspect that no matter what happens here, Northwestern will continue to manage this property in a responsible way. And that's consistent with up-to-date forestry practices. So it will entail cutting. Again, thank you for allowing me to address you here. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yes, no, we've got one on.
Okay, gotta find it here. Charles Fish, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm Charles Fish. I'm affiliated with the Fish Lake Property Owners Association. I've come to the information here a little bit late. Some of our members have expressed concern about fire risk assessment and training of Scott Township Fire Department and the Webb Lake Fire Department. I did hear some reassuring things here as I'm watching the video and listening. So just to make a point, we're concerned about the fire risk assessment and the training of the emergency responders. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other public comments? Are there any other public comments? We have no more online, right? This time I'll close the public hearing for CUP 2315. Committee have any comments or questions that they wish to ask at this time?
I'll start the ball rolling here. And applicants could come back up, one or both of you. We've got a lot of information provided in our packet. It's 398 pages, folks, and about 50 of it pertains to this. Lots of comments, lots of allegations of things that are, when I've searched to verify them, found nothing. But we have an extensive report based on hazard in Webb Lake. Now, Webb Lake isn't the only place that is fire prone in this region. The Northwest Sands Ecological Unit runs all the way from Sterling Township in Polk County to the Bayfield Peninsula. And the whole place is a fire-formed landscape initially. And then we came along and quit letting fires burn and planted a lot of Norways and made it arguably worse if there's a fire, frankly. But that's neither here nor there. The reality is it's nothing special about Webb Lake's fire-prone susceptibility, though. But looking at that, I see what looks like an assessment of threat based on the solar facility. But it seems to me that there's about probably just as much threat from the existing substation, which is to say very little. And creating the open space and essentially a fire break around the solar facility looks like it would in fact make the substation itself more secure. No one's argued that. I'm asking that question. Is that a reasonable assumption to make in your view?
Yeah, when we met with Ben Garrett from the DNR, he did indicate that our plan to clear out the area where the project is going to be from the existing vegetation does actually decrease the fuel risk there. And so subsequently, I would say that that does create more safety for that existing substation.
It's what my perception was looking at that I saw that generally speaking, there is not a very high risk for any of it. There's the other things that we do out in the forest are more likely to start a fire than that, to my mind.
The other thing that this does that has been pointed out, is it's going to create some joint training between Northwestern and the local fire department. We've committed to that. We do go around and meet with the local fire departments within their facilities, but we don't meet at our facility. And this is gonna force us to do that. We've put that in our conditions. So that'll be an improvement in itself. Aggregate surfaces and fences and barriers are what the National Electric Service Code that governs the construction of substations. That's what's with, those components are in that code, and that's what's within the conditions that were set forth. I do want to address one thing that you brought up regarding the number of comments that you have. Northwestern Wisconsin Electric has not fielded one comment, one call against this project in its offices. Not one.
I have one question. Are you going to do more than, more fire departments than just Webb Lake in training? In case it would be something that, I mean, it's all volunteer fire departments around that area, Scott, Oakland, and
Jackson, Scott, and Webb Lake are a mutual aid. I would assume they'd all be involved.
Yeah. We certainly would invite any local fire departments to the training. We think that this is something that, is anybody that wants to find more information out, we'd be happy to work with them.
I have a question, Energy One, with all of the applications that you've had over the, I don't know how many years with the facilities that you have been constructing, has the fire topic been prominent like it is on this particular project?
No.
What about, is it in the were a lot of them in the forests?
Well, we have one in Rhinelander, Wisconsin,
Okay.
which is surrounded by
All right.
by woods, and there's some homes around there too, but the fire risk, this is a new thing for us to counter. However, we want to appreciate and listen to the concerns, and that's why we made the effort to do so and made the modifications that we have.
Any other substations, are they vulnerable to fires also, other than solar?
I mean, anytime I talked about that in the beginning, Mother Nature tends to like to wreak havoc on electric distribution systems. And when that happens, the messages stay away because that energized equipment could cause fires. In talking to Ben, that's been within our industry since I've been doing this 33 years. And years ago, they made the electric utilities red flag patrollers, where they were the eyes and ears for the local community to spot local fires during the dry season because of our employees and because of our association with the equipment overhead. We've all seen that on the national news. We don't have Santa Ana winds, but it gets windy. But in general, when it does get real windy around here, you have rain or snow associated with it too, so that helps. But anytime you have electric distribution equipment,
Sure.
There's that danger.
A big concern from the people in Webb Lake seems to be around what happens at the end of the life of the project, and are they going to get stuck with a bunch of equipment and having to figure out what to do with it? Can you just address that? Because I know it's in the plan, but they didn't get to read the whole plan.
Yeah. So as part of our conditions that we have proposed to the county, we said that we would, put a security in place for the decommissioning. And as part of our agreement with all of our landowners, Northwestern Wisconsin being the landowner of this, we always commit to removing all of the solar facilities within 1 year of the end of its life. So whenever it stops producing power, within 1 year, everything we commit to removing that.
what becomes of the land after that?
It can be returned to whatever the landowner wants to use it for. Mhm.
And one other
I know that the fire danger has been the prevalent one, but there was also a lot of concern about how much noise this, because there's gonna be motors when the panels rotate and there's electrical noise and stuff.
Yeah, so the noise producing equipment is what are called inverters, which take the direct current power from the solar and convert it to alternating current power. So first of all, those are not operating at nighttime. In the daytime, we design our projects so those inverters are centrally located, so they should not be audible at the perimeter of the project. And we have done internal studies on noise producing, which compare the noise of the inverters to the like 45 decibel levels, which is the quiet rural noise level. If you look at a chart, 45 is right in between quiet rural and quiet urban. You know, so that's what we plan for.
And that's what it would be in those houses that are close by then.
Yeah,
Or
I mean, it would be even less than that, because this is just, the houses are even further away.
Well, I think you said at the perimeter of the project, I got the property line. The houses are at least a couple 100 feet farther than that.
There'll be a forest barrier between the project and the houses.
Yeah. So those internal studies are done with kind of how thinking about all the trees that exist there too. So
One more question that will come up later on, but screening from the road is really the only location that it would be visible to the public. And I don't recall any specifics of the screening, but are you contemplating like a low, short evergreen line right along the right of way of the road? Or
So
something like that for a visual barrier?
as you know, it's already forested, and so our plan is to leave the existing, we will clear the project area and for the emergency access path. But then leave existing vegetation there. And then if there was a need to fill in any of that existing vegetation, we you know, typically put in some kind of low growing or like a shrub or some kind of pine, although I don't know that that would be what you would want here.
Well, like obviously you wouldn't want to put a fuel load type thing. My thought was something on the order of Christmas tree planting, a couple, double row mismatched gap balsams or something like that we're never allowed to get more than about 15 feet high. That would provide a barrier for visual issues. And admittedly, as anybody who's driven by the one by Rice Lake, you can see it for a long ways, right? Doesn't bother me, but my point being that if you wanted to do some screening, it might need some gaps filled in between tree trunks of taller trees because they're only 8 feet high when they're at their peak, right?
Yeah.
So you're not talking a very tall,
No.
and you need to maintain it as low and as inflammable as possible. So that would have to be considered as part of a condition, I would think.
And you'd want to not plant pine or balsam because they are flammable.
Yeah, that's.
The perimeter now is old growth that was left there by the previous occupant, that was a paper company. And they left that as a barrier.
Yeah.
And that would be left.
I think John had mentioned previously that that no one will even know it's there if you don't know it's there to begin with. Is that pretty much after this construction?
It's not as large as the Rice Lake project. As we've stated, this is a very, very small project on a utility scale. It represents it represents less than half of the load on a holiday weekend that substation has on. It addresses just a very specific need. So it's a small project, 14 acres to begin with. You're going to see the substation more than you're going to see this project.
Right, it's already there.
Yeah.
There's a right of way established for the transmission line along Lake 26 in that area. And we're working on that line to for the reasons discussed about fire danger and that sort of thing, create a wider, more up-to-date right of way. So we've worked on the easements. with the local community and we're relocating part of the line to address some of the concerns with that easement. So we're reworking that already, but what you're gonna see is the transmission line. It's a 50-foot right of way, and the substation is on.
Ms. Anderson, question?
I think all questions got asked. All good.
The only comment I had is the report we got from the DNR. You know, just to read a little bit of it, over 98% of all wildfires in Wisconsin are caused by people. And the more people we have up here, the more likely we are to have more fires.
To a certain extent, it's what the people are doing too, right? Fireworks, which are illegal, we all know, but you know, it's a war zone on the 4th of July.
A comment more, I think, for the committee versus the applicant is there's talk about the town of Webb Lake passing an ordinance. And I wanted just some clarification. It's my understanding that because that ordinance was passed after this process was started, it doesn't apply to this project. And it's also my understanding that it's not up to this committee to enforce that ordinance. It's up to the town to enforce that ordinance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Right. And while we're on that particular tangent too, we all have correspondence from our corp counsel explaining to us the statutory limitations on our discretion on this kind of thing. So this isn't, not only do we have Act 7's conditional use permit issues about conditions accepted by us, but we also have a preemptive act of the legislature, which is even more extensive than that, which basically says unless we can find a public hearing danger or public health or safety danger, or and even then our limits on conditions must not affect the function of the project. So I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not trying to make the legal argument, but it is narrow. Our discretion is narrow on this, in my opinion.
Any other comments from the committee or questions? from the committee?
Beginning of this project, I was personally very surprised by the concerns that came up immediately regarding the project and the issue of fire danger. As president of Northwestern Wisconsin Electric, I immediately started doing some due diligence because I had never heard of these concerns. I asked many people in the industry, utilities, installers, large installers. We've had lots of large installers come through and ask us about projects. And I work personally with some of the smaller installers. I personally approve all the smaller projects that occur with our homeowners and our commercial entities that build solar. I approve. I talk to the installers. I used to go out and approve them. We do anti-islanding tests with every single one of them to make sure that they do not generate backwards into the system if the system goes down during a storm. And now I'm too busy to do that, so I have an electrician that's on staff that does it for us. I asked all these people because I wanted to know, as a 100-year-old, over 100 years we've served this community, and I care about the community, and Northwestern in general cares about the community. I asked everybody. Never been a concern. So, as a responsible entity, we did the due diligence. And we asked about this concern regarding the fire, and it just hasn't come up. And so from my professional opinion, it's just not a concern. And I'm very proud of One Energy as our contractor. We've talked about it. And even if it isn't a concern, it's a concern to the local community. So we have to address it in the conditions that Beth has laid out. She's addressed the concerns, and we will continue to do so. And we've made that commitment.
Any other comments, questions? If not, Someone wish to make a motion?
I would make a motion that we approve this cut based on all the conditions that have been laid out by the staff.
Also including the conditions that,
That's the ones.
But, so you'd want the staff conditions included and
Yes.
the One Energy proposed condition.
I think we need to
Okay.
go through them. I'll second that motion. But I think we want to go through the proposal and our staff conditions both for the record.
I tried to put, they should be near the end of the packet. Does that help you much?
Actually,
Then what,
oh,
staff report is on page 344.
okay,
Is that where we want to start?
I don't know, I can't get online, so I just read the.
I'm almost there.
Look up 2317 and go back.
That's the ones you talked about.
So page 344, so the staff conditions that we put together as county staff would be follow all sign regulations, follow all local, county, state, federal requirements for this activity, follow all conditions offered by the app.
And those are, do we have a date or the most recent conditions? I mean, that's, could we had a set initially and then they were amended and expanded? Right?
Yeah, so the ones I believe on page 347 of the
Okay,
packet are the proper ones. You want me to read them?
yeah,
I'll volunteer to read the page and a half. Okay. Applicant to Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company will meet with local community wildfire prevention program CWPP to review the creation of field breaks within and around the proposed project and emergency response access around the proposed project. This includes tree removal within the project in a minimum of 20 feet to the north, south, east, and west of the project fence. 15-foot wide aggregate emergency access path around the entire project perimeter. 16-foot wide aggregate access road into interior of the project. Aggregate surrounding the skid mounted equipment pad where the transformer is located and all 10 inverters. At least 10 days prior to start of construction, applicant in Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company will hold an on-site meeting involving local emergency responders to discuss the construction site specific emergency action plan, emergency response information such as meeting points and locations of emergency equipment and construction plans. As available, written copies of the emergency action plans and site maps will be provided to local emergency responders. No later than 30 days after the commercial operation date, COD, applicant in Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company will schedule an on-site meeting inviting local emergency responders to discuss the operation site-specific emergency action plan, emergency response information such as meeting points, locations of emergency equipment and operation plans. This information will be reviewed every year with local emergency responders throughout the project's lifespan. At least 10 days prior to the start of the project construction, Webb Lake Solar will provide the construction target dates of the town of Webb Lake and Burnett County. Applicants will utilize all UL certified equipment and NEMAX 4X rated electrical enclosures. NEMAX 4 rated enclosures are designed to be weatherproof and used in indoor settings and ensure that outdoor settings.
outdoor
Yep,
settings.
Don't say that wrong. In outdoor settings and ensure that the electrical equipment remains protected from rain, sleet, wind, water, ice, and corrosion. Applicant will maintain a setback distance from residences of at least 250 feet from the nearest panel and at least 500 feet from the nearest inverter. Applicant will design the project with ground operated electrical disconnects to shut down all electricity production from the project. Applicant will design the project to allow for continuous remote monitoring, including providing alarms for any indication the system is not functioning properly, and will maintain the ability to remotely de-energize the project in the event of any hazardous condition. In addition, the solar project will automatically shut down when the local utility substation shuts down. Applicant will perform annual maintenance of the project, which include diagnostics for all equipment, thermal imaging, and other assessment methods to ensure proper functioning and early detection of any abnormal conditions. Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company will do a visual inspection of the project site while doing the monthly substation inspection. Applicant will maintain low-growing perennial vegetation within the project fence, solar panels, and all other above-ground electrical equipment will be a minimum of 20 feet from the project fence line. Applicant will install wildlife-friendly fencing around the perimeter of the project. Within 30 days of the commercial operation date, applicant will provide a decommissioning study conducted by a third-party engineer, which estimates the cost to decommission the system and the salvage value of the equipment at the end of the 5th year of operation. The decommissioning estimate will be updated every 5 years for the ensuing 5-year period. Company shall provide evidence to the county that adequate funding is set aside in the form of a corporate guarantee, letter of credit, surety bond, escrow account, or other mutually acceptable form of financial security sufficient to meet the removal obligations. The amount of such funding shall be the expected cost to decommission the project less the salvage value of the equipment as determined by the decommissioning study. Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company and the applicant will work with local school districts and community groups to provide education about the facility upon request. Northwestern Wisconsin Electric Company will work to have the snowmobile trail relocated to an area outside of the project fence for continued recreational access.
And
Thank you, Jason, for reading that versus me.
You also have 3 staff.
And then the staff ones we talked about before that, yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 2315. Roll call vote, Mr. Sheminski.
Yes.
Mr. Blomberg is absent. Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes. Approval has been approved for CUP 20-15, Northwestern Electric Company. Thank you. Next. Initial use permit CUP 2317, Walsing storage units in an A2 zone. Applicant, please come forward.
Good morning, everybody. Mike Walton, Dean Walton. My wife and I have owned our property for 30 years. We've been residents of Burnett County 29 years. We've raised our children here, and they are now raising their families here. We have built and operated Whitetail Wilderness since 1994, with our children working with us. We are currently trying to boost our income to support 4 families that are working directly at Whitetail Wilderness to provide a moderate and steady income for all of us. We would hate to have our children and grandchildren move from the area because their financial needs could not be met, as we have 3 new grandbabies coming in May. We are currently requesting to be able to expand our current business to provide a necessary service to our current customers / campers. We would like to construct storage units. These storage units would provide a secure indoor facility for their private use for storage of any items, such as outdoor furniture, boats, kayaks, golf carts, 4-wheelers, etc. Our campers currently have to use off-site storage if available, leave them unprotected out in the elements at their sites, or take them items home to store. These storage units would help the RV park to be cleaner and more organized while providing a necessary service to our guests. These storage units would not be visible from State Road 35, nor would they be visible from the Gandy Dancer Trail. They would meet all setbacks. The addition of a storage building would not cost the township or county anything extra, and they would benefit from the additional property taxes. Our town chairman, Wayne Larrabee, town supervisor, Dan Murphy, and even the clerk all stated that they believe this was a good location at the meeting. All the way up and down Highway 35, there is commercial use. In fact, from Webster to Danbury, there are 4 facilities, storage facilities, which are all full. The Oakland Comprehensive Plan of 2030 had our property highlighted as commercial use. We have a commercial business here.
And I believe Mark has brought a map showing that. Our family is invested in our community and our business, as well as supporting our local businesses in the area. To help grow one business is to help grow the community. Thank you. I would now like to, Mark, would you like to, introduce, Mark would, have a few words, and then, my legal counsel would follow. Thank you very much.
Well, Mark Prosey, Wagner Surveying. I just want to bring up how we got to this point. We've been dealing with these issues for quite some time. And the biggest issue we have is what is called commercial, what isn't called commercial. And in this instance, the conditional use permit is allowed in the A2 zoning district with conditional use permit. And the land use plan for the town of Oakland is being used as the criteria for whether it's being accepted or not. And they have a very, very limited commercial district just at the Oakland store intersection corner. If you look in their own planning minutes and so forth, the existing commercial use and the future commercial use of the town of Oakland both show this property as being commercial, which is what they state it is because it's a campground. Years past, they were always residential to be allowed for campgrounds. Now with new zoning criteria of being commercial, they're being forced to be called commercial. They are called commercial. We still think they're a residence that has a commercial rental part of it. They pay a check once a year. They don't need to be commercial daily in and out. As you can also see on the map, every bar and restaurant, which there are 9 of them in the town of Oakland, are commercial shown also. They have more activity than either a storage building would or the campground per se, as far as daily traffic in and out. They depend on commercial activity or activity. Everybody knows the biggest commercial entity in the town of Oakland is Hopkins Sand and Gravel, right on the highway, just up the road from this property. They are zoned industrial because of the gravel pit. They're not zoned commercial because of that, but it is the largest commercial entity in the town of Oakland. The golf course is across the street. Wallace's Resort is across the street. There's multiple, as Mike said, there's other storage buildings up and down there. The McIntyre one at corner of A&H, the one you had heard a couple weeks ago board, there are multiple, and Rick Hopkins has one at Hopkins Sand and Gravel at the corner of Gables Road. And so all these issues are out there, but they continue to use the new fact that this is the only commercial area is at the intersection of U and C. It's not the only commercial entity because there's been many existing. As Mike stated, the commercial entity out there has been going on. The first conditional use permit that you saw in your notes and staff was from 1975 for 175 sites out there. This has been used as a campground and or commercial since Waltzing's bought it in 94 and built a campground there. There's no doubt that if it's considered a campground, it's considered commercial, it is commercial property. Why is there the argument that it's not commercial then? And we'd like to point out, this is right from their land use plan. And they had many issues on here where it's not compatible or not usable. But one of the main things that sticks out, and Mike kind of brought it up, was specifically in there. ED1 under policies and recommendations of the economic development plan. Tourism should be supported as a vital component of the town's economic base. Support home-based business for primary economic development tool. The town should support existing business expansion and retention efforts. The retention, expansion, and existing businesses should be supported through facility improvements and implementation of technology. I don't know what else this is. If you can't support this, I don't know why the town cannot support it. They are anti-campground. They don't want any other commercial development done, period. They did not even talk to us about conditions on this application. We applied to them in July. It took till last October to be heard. It's not very compatible as far as working. We wanted to sit down and talk to them numerous times on this, and we were stonewalled. And so we're here today.
Bar and restaurant also. More commercial there.
And the bar and restaurant is there too, and the golf course are all existing at the campground. There's 3, this would be the 4th enterprise. So there's already a golf course, there's a bar and restaurant, and there's the campground. So thank you.
Good morning, Anders Helquist from the Weld Riley firm in Eau Claire and represent Waltzings here. I'm a little surprised I had to show up for a storage unit facility, but I thank you for your time and listening to the Waltzings and Mr. Kraus and myself. Just to kind of help walk you through what the proposal is and how it meets your standards. I do have a handout if Mr. Chairman, may I provide that to the committee? Thank you. Then. Be there and then. So jumping to the page number 2. The Waltzings gave their overview here. How it is a small family-owned business. They've owned and operated since 1994. There are 100 sites here. It is private and tucked away. And this is, again, not a campground expansion. This is a common sense storage proposal for the existing use there. Jumping to the next page. Again, you have this in your packet, but they're looking at 50 storage units, and you can see on the map where they're looking to place those storage units on the property. And later on, you'll see how far set back this is from the road and other residences. Jumping to page 4. Again, this is a practical request from them. Try to provide some reasonable economic support for them, their family and their future generations here. Keep families in Burnett County and not drive them outside of the county because they don't have the resources to support them. Page 5, in terms of your standards, obviously you know your standards, but because I'm a lawyer, I'm just gonna have to say what they are, and Jason's chuckling, and thanks again for your patience here. I'm not looking to tell you and remind you. I guess I'm looking to remind you of what the standards are as you're going through here. With this conditional use, we believe we meet those standards in terms of meeting the health, general welfare, safety, and economic prosperity of the county intermediate area with this proposal. Those standards have multiple definitions, multiple meanings, and can be interpreted differently. But when there's that ambiguity, those ambiguous standards are required to be interpreted in favor of the free use of property. And so we're asking for the committee to recognize that even if there is a little bit of gray here, which we don't think there is, but if there is, the balancing of the scale should weigh in favor of issuing this conditional use permit. Page 6, those are the Act 67 standards, and you all are very well familiar with them, and I'm not lecturing you, Vice Chair Conroy. We all know what they are, but we would just like to point out that we need to look at what's specified in the ordinance, right? Those standards we just went over. What is in there in terms of approving or denying this? If there's going to be a denial, there needs to be that substantial evidence to support a denial. And we don't think the town has presented that. And we would ask that if the committee has concerns about this proposal, that we have a discussion during this hearing to see, are there some conditions that could address any committee concerns here? We don't think of everything that might be viewed as being wrong with this proposal. So again, the Waltzings want to just make sure we have that discussion to put in place any reasonable conditions that would address any committee concerns here. Page 7. So overall, you look through your staff report and there were no staff concerns listed by your zoning administrator about this proposal. We think that's a good first positive step, showing that your ordinance standards are met here. Waltzings also agree with all the proposed conditions listed in the staff report. And we would note that the reference to no outside storage meant no like outdoor storage and no storing boats around the storage units. I think that's correct, Administrator Town?
Correct.
All right. Turning the page and just looking at the immediate area of this proposed use. It's either the campground itself, the land is owned by the Waltzings, or there's undeveloped land, especially to the north, that really doesn't have residences. There don't appear to be any impacted residences by putting in storage units here. County setbacks are more than met. In fact, the closest point from the highway is over 900 feet from State Highway 35. And there's significant vegetative buffering. So if you turn the page to page 9, you'll see the measurement from the GIS site showing where these proposed storage units would be on the property and the relationship to State Highway 35. It's almost 940 feet away. It's out of sight, it's out of mind. And if you turn the page, you look at page 10, there's the view looking towards where the storage units would be. They're tucked behind those trees, way across and way off the highway.
Behind the second row of trees?
Definitely. So yeah, so there's the first row here, and then you've got to cross all of that area, and then you've got to get beyond the next tree line there. Again, looking at the immediate area, the neighbors, the Reynolds and the Wallace Trust haven't filed any opposition to this project. I don't have either of them complained about your campground since you've been there? No. No. Their proposed storage unit is over 1,300 feet from the nearest residence. That's not the Waltzings. That Wallace Revocable Trust residential building, you turn the page to page 12, see the measurement there. Really, it's closer to 1,400 feet. I rounded down. So you can say a lawyer wasn't exaggerating up on things.
That's their residence services actually on the lake.
Yeah, and that's the closest I could find to a residence with their immediate neighbor that got the they got the notice. Yeah, and that might even be off the county storage building.
Yeah.
So it's even further. The point being, setbacks are more than met, and there's a significant buffer here. And I appreciate that Don Hamilton recognized the importance of exceeding the setback standards regarding the solar facility. And I would hope the committee would appreciate the significant distance from anyone else that this project has. Whether it's when you're driving down the highway or if you live in a home. Jumping to page 13, looking at the health, general welfare and safety. Again, this is an existing campground use at the site. And the proposed use is consistent with and complements that use. Having the storage units promotes orderly development and use of the property. It promotes having storage of items at the campground for the things that guests bring with them. It enhances the look and aesthetic of the campground when you don't have things lying out in the open. And again, looking at State Highway 35, it's a straight stretch of the state highway. There's no curves there.
Will you be able to see it from the Gandy Dancer Trail?
Then there's, again, the sporadic low amounts of off-site traffic that would actually come in to here. It's primarily going to be for on-site existing campground users who right now have to take their items off-site to a different storage facility. It makes sense to keep it internal as much as possible. We're unaware of any environmental concerns. Based on Dave Ferris's email, which I believe is in your packet, there were no wetlands or surface water nearby, so runoff controls are not needed. Although he mentioned that infiltration is recommended for the drip lines, of the buildings. And that's fine if that needs to be imposed as a condition. We'll defer to the county conservationist on that. Again, having locked storage also increases the security and promotes safety at the campground itself by having items locked away. When you don't have the temptation of things lying out and you have it locked away, it's just more secure. Jumping to page 15. There are already lights up at this location. And the lighting that's already there might be sufficient. But the Waltzings are willing to provide additional minimal lighting to enhance security. And they'll install cameras as well. There's also no noticeable noise associated with storage units. They sit there and maybe the door will get open to the unit once for a very brief time and then closed. And again, being 900 feet from a highway and at least 1,300 feet from a residence, we think there's no noise issues with this either. And again, there's the extensive vegetative buffering with significant setbacks that effectively eliminates any potential adverse impacts from this proposal. And again, looking at the economic prosperity component, page 16, it provides a benefit for the campground owners, provides a practical use for campground guests, and potentially cabin or other homeowners who need storage in the area. It provides convenience for that on-site storage for the off-season for campground guests. You know, we hear often there's a concern about camping units and RVs not providing taxable benefits. Here, you know, we're not saying it's going to be a windfall, obviously. These are storage buildings, but these are taxable storage buildings that provide some additional revenue to the town and county to provide an economic benefit. And the county has approved storage buildings up and down 35 and 70. Jumping to the next page, page 17. The town's opposition, respectfully, they oppose this, but that's not, the reasons are not substantial evidence. The town improperly treats this like a rezone, where it's trying to veto a use that can be conditionally permitted. The town doesn't have the legal veto authority here. So even though the town opposes it, it's ultimately the committee's decision on whether to grant the conditional use permit or not. And the only reason that's been provided by the town to oppose this, they've had multiple meetings over this, is that it doesn't meet the town's comprehensive plan, which tries to severely restrict commercial or campground related uses in the town to a very narrow. The town's reasons to oppose this are actually anti-economic prosperity. They're anti-small business. They're anti-local business. They're anti-family business. In this case, they're also anti-tax revenue. That does not, town's reasons do not work in favor and support for denial. It actually has the opposite effect. They're trying to limit reasonable commercial development for an existing small family-owned business. And that's against the economic prosperity of the county in the immediate area. Page 18, again, comprehensive plans are a guide. With a conditional use permit, there is no consistency requirement required for comprehensive plans. That's the state law. The town treats their comprehensive plan like a regulation to prohibit and outright ban existing commercial development. But comp plans are not to be treated as a regulation that prohibits an otherwise conditionally permitted use. State code says that. Enactment of a comprehensive plan by ordinance does not make the comprehensive plan by itself a regulation. In the last public hearing, the individual who's spearheading the opposition to this said he appreciated the very surgical-like precision that was used to assess the individual proposal for the solar facility. He's doing the opposite, and the town's doing the opposite with this. Instead of specific surgical reasons that are concerning to them, the town is using an overbroad brushstroke from their comp plan to oppose this. And that is simply not substantial evidence. Limiting economic prosperity like they're doing with their comp plan is not consistent with your ordinance standards. Additionally, your standards for issuing this conditional use permit or denying it. We went over those standards earlier. And being consistent with the town's comprehensive plan is not a standard that's specified in your ordinance. Additionally, in terms of how we reach this position point, Mark touched on the issues that have occurred with the town to date and how there hasn't been an opportunity really for a reasonable conversation. And then finally, the town did hold their meeting on this. And during that discussion, one of the town supervisors who owns a storage business engaged in the discussions to oppose this. And he ultimately said on the record that the town comp plan should be followed and this should be denied. After doing that, he stepped away and didn't vote, but the act had been done. And there's a procedural due process concern that my clients have at the town level with how they got to their no here. But that's not the reason you should or shouldn't deny this. The Waltzens have put forward a very reasonable, low impact proposal that's set back, and it's consistent with their existing use there. There are no concerns in the staff report about this. The Waltzings will meet or will agree to meet any and all the requirements and conditions of the county ordinances, or that the conditions that the committee feels need to be addressed to permit this project. We respectfully request the committee grant the conditional use permit. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them, and thank you again so much for your time and listening to an attorney speak for a little bit. I know it's not your idea of a fun morning, but I thank you anyhow. So thank you.
Committee have any questions for the
Not at the moment, but I guess I'd reserve the right to call any one of them back up if we need to clarify something.
Any comments, questions?
Would this be an appropriate time to ask a question in general or wait till we hear the rest of the public hearing?
Pardon?
Is this an appropriate time to just ask like a question about the permit, or would that just be after the public hearing is complete?
I think we got more, we need to open a public hearing, I think, next, right?
Yeah,
Don't you think?
unless we have questions.
Right. Anything specific right
Well,
now?
I guess my question is, I spend a lot of time preparing for meetings, and as I'm looking at the application, I don't see measurements anywhere on here. So I feel like I'm hearing setbacks and things, and it's kind of vague to me, and unless I'm missing something, it's, it's either 2 or 3 buildings and either 25 to 50 units, and I'm just not seeing measurements here, so I don't know if that's provided in the application or what we see here is what we got.
I believe what you see here is what you got, the sketch that shows the 3 approximate locations. of the
Approximate and
buildings.
no dimensions and not how many buildings and not the size of the buildings.
Correct.
Okay.
Our applications are generally pretty vague in most cases. There is a list of things that we have, but this is a generic application that covers every possible thing people can ask for, so.
So we're being asked to approve up to a certain amount and up to,
Well, that's why it's worded the public hearing, it's up to 50 units.
Okay.
So they can't build 80 units if this was approved.
but we also don't know the size of the buildings.
Well, they're gonna be in these approximate locations and those approximate
Approximate.
dimensions. So if they came to me and said, I wanna move them over on the other side, I would say, well, that doesn't match what your application shows.
But we don't know, is there, 48 in one building and 2 in the other? I mean, we don't know. any
No, and I
specifics.
guess if.
Okay.
If,
We don't have the exact, I'm sorry, we don't have the exact size yet, but it'll be approximately 10 by 24. 10 by 26 right in there.
Individual units.
Individual.
I guess that's information that's important to me is to know what we're approving, but. Okay.
You would get that with the building permit.
when they
application.
applied for the land use permit, then they would give us the specific dimensions at that point, yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're talking about the use, not the structure specifically yet.
Well, I wasn't sure because, they're bringing up lots of dimensions and setbacks. So I wasn't sure if it applied to this or not.
It will at some point, but not necessarily for our decision today. It could, we could set dimensions as a condition, but there's lots of room there.
Any other questions or comments from the committee members? Not, I'll open the public hearing for conditional use permit 2317. Waltzing storage units in an A2 zone. Please come forward and state your name and your comments. You have a 3-minute time period.
Good morning, Don Hamilton. I chair the Oakland Land Use Committee and I'm disappointed about the derogatory and marginalizing comments about Oakland's process, but in your hands is the minutes of our process. And I would like to say on behalf of Chairman Larrabee, our town chair was here and the committee, I don't think there's a town out there that's more engaged and partners more with their applicants and has more conversations than we do in Oakland. But I wanted to share this with you to show you that we do, in our minutes towards the bottom there, we do review the Burnett County ordinance when we make our decisions on conditional use permits. And we want to recognize there on the front page there that there's no discussion about whether this use is an authorized use, but in chapter 30, in our county land use ordinance, not at every location that's in there. We've heard complaints and accusations before that we're treating them or this differently than other people, and we beg to differ. And if you look at how Oakland land use decisions with respect to new or expanded commercial have gone, we've approved projects that were consistent and compliant with our comprehensive plan, including the one for the Waltzings in 2021, where they currently now enjoy the largest accessory storage structure limits for any campground in Burnett County, with 13 sites up to 1,000 square feet, the largest. Conversely, we've also disapproved land use requests that were inconsistent and conflicted with our plan. We reviewed, and Oakland denied a rezone request for more commercial in this location. This is not where Oakland wants expanded commercial. And we've also recently disapproved Lone Pine Storage. We disapproved them for expanding their mini warehouse location because it was not in the right location, in the location where the plan calls for it. So we've done that. I'd like to restate the recommendation from the town is to disapprove this based on inconsistencies and non-compliant with the comprehensive plan. This request really circumvents previous cups for larger storage of accessory structures. We were told, and we partnered with this applicant, that that was the end of the storage when we went through this cup in 2110, where we grandfathered 13 sites. We were told that if they got this, this was the end of the request for additional storage. And here we are today. This is why Oakland wants to get a handle on expanded or new commercial outside the commercial area. All these islands of commercial development are not going to facilitate the town. Oh, I'm sorry, I had 3 minutes, doesn't really allow the town to respond, but thank you for your time.
Next.
Well, I wish I knew what Don was gonna say, because I would have helped him out, but with all the handing out, it seems like that shouldn't count in 3 minutes. Anyway, I'm CJ Long. I'm a resident of both Oakland and Jackson Townships. And first off, I was thinking these were individual sheds, so that's how confusing it was to just a regular citizen trying to understand what's happening. So I understand the comment that it seemed very vague. I understand now it's up to 50 units, approximately 10 to 24 feet per unit, 2 to 3 buildings, no measurements. I do oppose the cup and I support the town of Oakland position. I'm not anti-camper. I have been a camper in my younger days. I'm not anti-business. I've owned a business. My trouble with this is the definition of camping, and it's kind of come up in terms of other cups, and in this, it applies here. Mr. Waltzing commented they'd either have to do this or that, or have to take the items home. And I thought, well, duh, yeah, that's what you do. You camp and you take your stuff home with you. You don't live there. You don't leave stuff there usually. Turns out they already have storage. So there's that. But so I don't understand how this is consistent with camping, unless it's the person's real property, which it isn't. It's the Waltzing's real property. And there's plenty of local storage in the area, very close by too. I'm not going to go into that, but that would take money away from other commercial storage units. So why would you want to do that? And those are already secure. So all those issues of the storage don't make sense to me. But basically, I applaud the town of Oakland and the comprehensive plan that tries to balance land use for us in the north. My family's been here for, I don't know, well over 100 years now. So I care about the north. I care about what it is. I want a balance. And I think this increasing commercialization in the wrong places is inconsistent with the north. It's inconsistent with the Oakland comprehensive plan. And it's inconsistent with what you're looking at in terms of this cup. So I would ask that you deny.
Thank you. Any other comments? Are there any other comments on the public hearing portion?
Wayne Larrabee, town of Oakland, Chairman. We've had numerous meetings on this and we've worked on 3 different long range plans over the years. 2003 was the first one, 2011 was the second one. We got this one done in 2020. We will have another one in the plans in 2028. Personally, it doesn't matter what I think. But what goes into this decision by the town board, what was decided in these plans, that we donated a lot of time. We asked for volunteers, we advertised. We had advertised, would like to have gotten 10 this last time. COVID kind of threw a wrench into it. We got 8, probably 7 showed up at meetings. We had to mask, we had to disinfect, you know, all the bullshit that we had to go through. And, you know, this is something that should be taken more seriously. Our plan. And the personal acquisitions and stuff like that, there's no need for that. This is about the future. I look at that, to provide vision and stewardship. That's what it's all about, the next generation. 9 times out of 10, when we have these people come in for conditional use permits, it's all about what I want, what I can take, what I can get for nothing. There's never any give back. There's never any, well, I'll set aside this, or I'll do this, or whatever. It's always take. And I'm like I said, I'm not going to go into the decision-making process on this one itself, because I have personal opinions and stuff. I have to go from what I was elected to do and by the people. And I was contacted by 24, 25 people on this. And there was myself and our town clerk that were in favor of it. So there you go. Thank you for your time.
Any other public comments? Are there any other public comments? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do you have any questions, comments?
Yeah, I'll again start us out here. This is a really good example of the issues with conflicts between existing zoning and comprehensive plans. You know, we all know that the comprehensive plan is a guide, but we've spent a lot of time, and bars and grills show as commercial, campgrounds, lots of things store as commercial. There's no real difference between whether they're in a commercial land use zoning district or have been approved by conditional use in some other than commercial district. So that becomes an issue really, as to how to evaluate that. And I think we all would agree, on no matter which side of the issue you're on, that some conditional use permits do affect a change in land use, as would a rezoning, even though the statutory provision is, of course, that towns have veto authority in non-shoreland areas over a change of their zoning map, whereas a conditional use permit, they're advisory. But on our ordinance specifically states we're going to request comments from towns on conditional use and we're gonna apply the standards that we've always had in the ordinance, which you could argue Act 67 weakened or shifted the burden of proof from the county to the, or from the applicant to demonstrate that to the county to demonstrate it's not consistent. But so we have taken comprehensive plans into consideration and look at consistency. And I think Anders would probably agree that we haven't really never had an appellate court sit down and tell us what Act 67 actually sets as a standard. It would be nice if that had happened. It still hasn't happened. So I just, we do consider what the town says when we look at conditional use permits. And the argument is whether this one is or isn't a good idea. That's what we're gonna have to sort out here. But I want to put a little more weight to the conditional, the comprehensive plans, conflicts and consistency requirements than simply saying that we don't pay any attention to them at all. So.
Any other comments from the committee?
I've got a couple. For me, I think it's very misleading to say that this request is non-compliant with the comprehensive plan of the town. In reviewing the plan last night, I found over 20 instances where it is compliant. So if we deny it for non-compliance, then I don't understand what all these are for in the plan that talks about encouraging tourism, you considering the plan. There's most of these were touched on by the applicants. And it's just, I don't see this as an expansion. The property isn't expanding, the use of the property is expanding, but we're not expanding the commercial zone. So for that reason, I'd like to make a motion to approve CUP 23- what is this, 15? 17. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
If you want that motion to approve the 5 staff recommendations.
Yes. Thank you.
Have a motion by Mr. Chmielewski. Is there a second?
I'll second it so we can get discussion.
Second by Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think one additional condition that I would like to see would be that lighting be downward around the storage building.
Wish to amend the motion to include downward lighting.
Yes.
Is this will this be mainly for the current campers, or would it be providing more traffic coming in and out on Highway 35?
It would be mainly for the tenants there. All my tenants have first choice and left after that, then I would like to.
So
that is the main goal.
you have how many campers at this time?
100.
So basically half.
We actually polled our campers in an email and asked if we had this, would you be willing to use it? Would you want it? And 70% of them said yes. And the other 30 either didn't respond or had no comment on it. But it was a majority idea because we didn't want to step forward with this idea and not have it be useful to them. And actually, they have talked about it off and on for the last 10 years on why we didn't offer something like this.
So actually would help the traffic on Highway 35 because there'd be less boats and RVs and things going in and out, UTVs or whatever, and trailers.
We have a motion by Mr. Chmielewski and a second by Mr. Anderson and Mr. Brent Blomberg recommended that on the stipulations, one more with the downward lighting around the storage units.
I guess I have, just a couple more questions. So there are garages or storage buildings at individual units at this point?
No, the only thing is they might have a shed on their
Storage
lot,
shed.
storage shed.
Storage shed, okay.
And even though we're permitted up to 250 square feet per shed,
We don't allow anybody more than 8 by 12 storage shed.
Are they allowed to continue to apply for additional? I'm just thinking density and I know that'd be on a case by case basis, but I mean, you know, like every 100 units, and if everyone has storage and we're adding, you know, potentially adding.
Well, so there's CUP for the storage at the individual campsites.
So each one's an additional cup if they want to.
Well, now the our ordinance doesn't allow them to ask for any additional sizes. So that was like a 4-year window in there, 3-year window where campgrounds could ask for bigger sizes. Oh, now that's done. So their CUP applies to the 100 sites that they have right now. If they added 50 campsites in the future, they're gonna be locked into the 100, 200 number that exists in the ordinance. If that's what your question is about.
It is, and then,
But then, you know, let's say they add 50 campsites in the future, they should come back and try to add more storage units with a new CUP. There's nothing saying you can't ask for a new CUP again in the future.
and I did read it, but can someone point me to, what Oakland's objections were? Their reasoning.
It probably should be mentioned that this is a separate CUP though. This is not really the targeted customers are the campers. But it isn't necessarily anything to do with the campground.
Correct.
In a technical sense.
Yes.
So,
Just makes sense for the campers to do it, use it. Instead of having outside people coming in.
right, well, that would be the customer base. I mean, in a sense, it's an expansion of use because it's functioning more like a manufactured home community than a campground in a way, but that's not anything that's relevant to this discussion. Just my perception. It'd have no bearing on it either way.
Is there relevance to us considering, the town's objections?
And I think
And that's
I'm gonna do a devil's advocate argument, kind of. This is an A2 district. You could be building turkey barns and it would be permitted. I don't even know if we'd even issue a permit as an ag building,
No.
right? So that isn't relevant. It's an issue with Oakland is whether this is a change of use of that is inconsistent or conflicts with the comprehensive plan. And you can kind of argue it both ways, as has been done.
Right.
Okay, so.
Because my understanding looking at this is that they don't want expanded commercial other than where they've designated.
It becomes a case in my mind of what you consider commercial. I'm gonna use the town of Jackson as an example here. We have no commercial zoning in Jackson at all, no commercial designated area. The town of Jackson chose to regulate commercial activity by conditional use permit. Prior to Act 67 and 2016 Act 362 or whatever it was, that changed some of the language in the planning law. But it still has been effective because we don't have a state highway or a commercial zone that we could particularly target. And we wanted to limit commercial activity in Jackson to what we could individually approve as a specific permit. Okay, so Oakland may have to look a little more carefully at some of these more innocuous activities that aren't really hardcore commercial, home occupations and that sort of thing, you know, are still a commercialization and might show up on a future land use map as a commercial activity because there's a nail salon there, right? But that doesn't change the character of the district if the nail salon ceases to operate. You know, building commercial buildings does. So
Well, I think that's the danger of using that map because then everyone can,
We're trying to clarify that in our
Right.
next comprehensive plan. To
Got it.
make that clear, you have to read the text as well as look at the map. But that's not technically what we have right now. And it's still, as was correctly pointed out, a guidance. It's not a regulation.
Any other comments before I ask for?
Just one, we've talked a lot about the screening from Highway 35 and the Gandy answer. What about from the campground itself? It's gonna be like a bunch of garages sitting out in the middle of some place that the campers have to drive by all the time?
There's a field, a big field in front of the restaurant. Yep. There and that, so it will not be inside of the campground, it'll be right outside,
north
right
side?
by the entrance of the campground.
what is this report addressed distances to neighbors and the highway. What is the distance to the Gandy?
Really,
I don't remember exactly how far.
I don't, I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's still him.
what is it?
75.
75 feet? There's gotta be at least 150 plus.
And the Gandy right away is over 100 feet, so the trail itself is the center of the 100-foot strip to start with. And then there's the 75-foot setback, it's well over 150 feet.
There's all kinds of trees and stuff that fall along the Gandy with also lots of view of anything.
This is basically going in Mike's sand pit that he's used for borrow for sand out there, and so it's already cleared
That'll
area.
all
so-
be done when the land use permit is issued.
I would like to propose a additional condition of maintaining screening between the building and the Gandy.
To maintain existing vegetation.
Or, see, I can't tell what it is.
Well, I mean, if you look.
It looks like there's a little bit of
This
vegetation.
drawing, there's some vegetation. You know, you have the trail and then you have the vegetation that's in the DNR right away. That they leave natural, and then it looks like the Waltzings have vegetation on their property.
If you'd like me to plant more trees to even make it more private, I can do that. I have the equipment to do that.
I'm not sure how we specifically say. you
Well,
know,
and other
amount
ones,
or height or-
in other CUPs in the past, you guys have made that you've been very specific with plant, you know, double row of evergreen or something, you know, at 5-foot intervals. Or you've been as vague as, you know, maintain existing vegetation. So I mean, you guys kind of got to decide if you want that condition, how specific you want to be with it.
And without having looked at the site, it's hard to know. How high is the vegetation along the Gandy?
That's a recommendation here, probably. We would say that we maintain at least 100 feet of natural buffer, natural existing between there and the Gandy. And if it is not sufficient, we plant additional trees in that.
I guess when you say natural buffer, I would be interested in a height or density. You know, is the natural buffer?
They're jack pines, they're 35 to 40 feet tall, poplar trees that are 30 to 40 feet tall. They're all existing trees that are growing naturally out there right
Okay, I
now.
can't tell that.
White pines, lots of white pines.
And the field white pines are very bushy too, as everybody knows, so.
Yeah.
We're happy to meet with the zoning office to review this. if
I think the screening is pretty good there because I know the snowmobile club has to go out once or twice a year to keep trimming it.
Yeah, probably then adequately be, but you said maintain existing natural buffer for 100 feet would probably do it.
And I guess as I'm looking at the map, is 100 feet from trail center or from?
Well, yeah, they would, we can't regulate the state-owned buffer edge.
I know.
So I think it would be within the property
So
yeah.
100 feet
from the edge of the line.
the
Would
edge
would that work?
of the DNR line.
I think the state goes just like they found the highway, I think they go from the center of the highway. I think they go from the center of the game. If you want me to put it on the edge of the game, I don't know.
If we go 100 feet from the right of way, and there'd be at least an additional 15 to 25 that's in the state trail already, so you'd have the 100 plus the 15 to 25 with the state retain there. More than likely, we can't control that, but that's.
Why don't you do 50 from the property? That'd be a fair
That's fine.
compromise, because then we're not gonna worry about if the DNR clear cuts their whole corridor and then something happens. If you just control what's going on the property that they control.
Nothing because of the.
You wish to make that as an amendment, Ms. Anderson?
Yes, I'd like to
What is it? What is it?
amend the condition, an additional condition, to maintain, the current vegetation, 50 feet from the DNR property line.
Just basically be maintain, and or supplement, I guess. Current vegetation within 50 feet of the property line. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, you
And
want
Brent had the condition that he wants the outside lighting for the storage to be downward facing.
why don't you?
Yeah, question, of Jason, actually, if approved, this becomes an island. Commercial island. In a non-commercial zoned area.
It's not being rezoned to commercial.
I know it is not, but I mean, it is a commercial. If it's approved, it becomes a commercial property within a non-commercial.
Well, that's kind of what Craig was just talking about a few minutes ago, was when it's by a conditional use permit. Is it really, might be a quasi-commercial use,
Right,
but it's not like they
it's a-
could go, well, we're gonna tear down the storage units and build a Quick Trip there tomorrow.
Right,
Because
right.
it's not zoned.
My question was, how does that compare to other cups that we have approved over the years? As far as kind of like an island,
That's
is it conforming pretty much the way the other approvals have been made?
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's specific to a single use. It doesn't allow any other commercial use. That's my issue with the way that comp plans are done. When it shows commercial, but it's a use that could only be approved conditionally. It's not anything goes commercial district. It becomes confusing and misunderstood by people looking at it.
So a good example I say is like Bumps Bar. That's a residential area along the whole west side of Devil's Lake. They got a CUP to have a bar restaurant there. That is all they're allowed to have there. They can't tear that bar restaurant down and then all of a sudden put in a convenience store or any other commercial storage units or any other commercial activity, because it's that single use was approved in that specific location.
And the other aspect, we're kind of on a tangent here, but the other aspect is if it's discontinued for a year or more, or it extinguishes, it no longer is there, whereas a commercial land use zone allows anything permitted or conditionally permitted to be started over again. But in a case that's where I pick at the confusion created by how comp plans are drawn, is that it implies that there's a commercial use that's forever and it's not. And again, that's the kind of thing we're trying to clear up in our guidance in the comp plan, but it is again, guidance. So.
This time I'll call for a vote on the approval of the CUP 2317 with the amended 2 stipulations to the staff report. Mr. Sheminski,
Yes.
Mr. Blomberg,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton,
No, on
Mr.
principle.
Mr. Conroy.
Uh, I am voting no. Simply
Mr.
because
Bickford,
I'm,
yes.
pardon?
I said
Oh,
Mr.
yes.
Bickford, yes. Conditional use permit 2317 has been approved. Thank you very much. Go on to the request to approve of filling a vacant zoning specialist position. Louis, in.
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys very much for that.
So you have a request in your packet there to refill, basically Heidi's position. Heidi went to the dark side, went over to work for the state. So,
What agency?
this piss, plan reviewer.
Okay, well, that's okay. Yeah, CC Teskey left, so.
Well, she didn't get CC's job, because
Okay.
CC was, also did site visits. She's just, plan review.
Oh, all right,
Yeah.
all right.
The dark side. Yeah. Any state agent. So anyway, yeah, so we're looking to refill her position. We need that position. Obviously, it helps with all of her permitting enforcement, sewer inspections, zoning, land use permits, all that type of stuff, so. I
Obviously,
think with the last 7 positions, I don't think we've ever hired anyone with credentials. We pretty much train them all up and then they go leave the grass
we're
that's
doing
greener.
way too good a job of getting our people up to speed.
Apparently, we need to do a worse job at training, I guess. And we just can't compete, you know. She went there, it was like $5 an hour more an hour, so we can, you know, we can't compete with that pay range. So
I'd like to make a motion to approve filling that vacant zoning specialist.
Second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Blomberg, second by Mr. Conroy. Roll call vote, Mr. Sheminski.
Yeah.
Mr. Blomberg.
Yeah.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy.
Yes,
Mr. Bickford, yes. Request has been approved to be sent to administration.
yeah, and it's already been posted, the job has already been posted out there, for maybe a week. I don't know if we've got applicants yet. But yeah, so let's go to admin for approval of that. Next, land services, property information, zoning division reports. I don't know why my PDF is not loading, must be so many pages here.
Only on 375.
I found it.
So,
391.
So the reports are in there, staff reports, budget reports, everything's on track for budget. We hit our revenue already for the year, so we'll be over on that a little bit. Plus, we'll be short a position here for a while, so I'm sure we'll be, you know, sending money back to the general fund at the end of the year, which is a good thing. Yeah, there's really nothing out of line in the budget. We do have money budgeted in here, $40,000 for a new truck. We're probably not gonna have that truck before the end of the year, so I'll probably be asking you guys for a carryover request, just to roll that money into next year. We'll do that.
Guaranteed you will have it before.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's everything's. Permit statistics are in there. You'll see, over 1,500 permits so far this year. We still got 2 months left. Things are slowing down though, obviously. You get some cold weather. Holy Week is almost here, you know, that's when everything seems to shut down building wise, so, yeah. Everything's on track though, nothing.
It's gonna be really nice right up until Thanksgiving week. Nobody's gonna be out plowing frozen ground. For
Yeah,
longer.
I was a little worried there when we had those couple of cold days, but now the long, 10-day forecast looks pretty good,
Yes,
so.
yeah, you were around when the Halloween blizzard happened. You should have seen the screeching halt that came that year for those guys.
I was a little older than
91.
that. I was 14.
I inspected a guy doing a mound on the way home, I think, or a system, conventional system, Wally Benson. And he was plastered with snow so cold, he couldn't function anymore. And he had covered it up with hay, the drain field. And said, I'm going home, I'll come back and finish, backfill this. Not for a week or more. He left his machine and his trailer and everything there. Couldn't get back to even get it for days.
Yeah.
It was something else.
So that's it for staff reports, or unless you guys have any questions on that. Future agenda items, so we have that Birchwood Beach, storage units will be next month, and that is the only thing that'll be on the agenda. It's a relatively recent meeting.
Martin, I put my name on there for general notes too. I talked to Jason, yes, at length, or we've talked about this subject numerous times in the past. But I was at DOA last night again. We had 2 or 3 fire pit issues again. And there's some things that I know Jason at the recent zoning conference and so forth, they brought some of this stuff up. They never discussed, the DNR doesn't want to talk about what's a structure and what's not a structure. And there's so many fire pits out there that are getting tipped for being structures, whether house size or whatever, you know, if the pavers, if you can move them in a half an hour with a shovel, they should not be a structure in my mind. But that's, you know, it's not how the DNR terminology is, but I think the committee, when they're going to talk about revising some of their definitions and some of their ordinances as far as making things work so that they have less work to do on a regular basis as far as enforcing or chasing chickens or whatever you want to call it, you know, make something there that's reasonable and acceptable. And you have to talk to the, I guess, the politicians, you know, or to get something passed, because I don't think the zoning administrators can do it by themselves either. You know, they need to have some political push on it, because some of these issues are just waste money. It, you know, costs the clients $2,000 to get their fire pits approved, you know, and it's, you know, nobody's had a conditional, you know, nobody's fought it in court because nothing's worth 20 grand to fight for something like that. We haven't found an attorney that's going to fight it yet, you know, so it hasn't been justified whether, you know, fire pits are structures or not. You know, they just designate them as structures, so they're structures and they fall under all the land use, and everybody's fire pits between the house and the lake, so they're all non-compliant just about, you know, just about 90% of them.
I think DNR's language is form, shape, and utility, right? To be a structure, which pretty much is everything.
Pretty much lawn chair.
Yeah. A fire pit.
Now, I will tell you, you know, we're not chasing the ring of stone that people put out to put their logs in, but you know, these fire rings will let's call them what they are. They're patios, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a ring with a patio around it. So I mean, that's what the issue is, and these things are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We have better aerial imagery, so we can see more things now that we couldn't see in the past. When we did ordinance amendments 5-6 years ago, when all the shoreline changes came through, I tried to get things in there. But we cannot be less restrictive than what the state law allows. So I can't make an exemption just to say, yeah, Burnett County, you can have a 100 square foot patio 2 feet from the lake. The DNR is going to say, no, we can't certify your ordinance because that's less restrictive than what the state law allows. So that's where, yeah, without getting politicians to change the law, you know, we're stuck kind of in this.
And the last time it went through the change, it went in one recommendation and came out totally different with a lot of impervious surface stuff added in that wasn't even, you know, part of the deal at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can be careful what you wish for when the politicians get involved.
Whenever you get to the winter time month when you're discussing things out with them, I need some looking at, because some of these things don't fall in the cookie cutter thing of what a structure is. And we also talked the same thing as I was right by public access next door. There was a dock with 6 Adirondack chairs on it out in the water on the dock. You know, the state doesn't regulate their own waters very good. They allow all this stuff out here. Here you can't have a fire pit that's big, yet you can have a boat lifts and a dock and all kinds of apparatus sitting out in the water. And we fight that stuff all winter now too, is because every one of those docks that are out there are now on land, and they're there for 6 months too. And you don't see it, or it's not permanent, but they're all there. They don't put those in storage or pull them to back 40. They sit them right on the lake shore. If you go around the lakes right now, our work is very hard because you can't even get to the corners or between the lake and the house hardly because it's full of docks, you know, so.
Or
Just one of those
boatless,
things
too.
that's boatlets from docks and whatever, so. Thank you.
There a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Motion by Mr. Conroy, second by Mr. Anderson, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. County board is the 14th.
A week from today. Oh, what is this?
Just
I'll look at it later.
it's a busy day, this.
Oh,
Oh, man. My watch an hour ago said time to stand.
Is that an hour later than it's supposed to be now?
Thank you.
See,
I guess the dark is.
Okay. Right?
I haven't, yeah, I haven't. Well, and that's those ones in Anderson and Trade Lake, I told them the same thing, you gotta get it written, they're both zone A2.
He's talking about doing it on land he's already got. So it's not, you know, that part has.
Recommended zoning, they could ask for it to the district. Other than forest, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's gonna be a four off because it's. Kind of like.
This is all information by email.
Low density.
That's just the.
Yeah. Well, because that's where it's sold.
Just.
No, I know, I agree. It's easier, out of 400 gigas, it's easier to find that.
That's a thought.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Good winter project. We talked about maybe,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
And I
you.
watched everything. you guys
Yeah,
did with the
okay.
office next door.
Oh, it's a little bit different, just that this is like never get the whole parcel and.
I actually have done that part of ours.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi.